Alright, this is part 3 to what if Deku had the Blacklight virus from Prototype. In the last episode, we got done with the Heroes vs. Villains exam, and we also got All Might back in his prime, or a little bit stronger than his prime, due to the fact that Deku was able to heal him using the virus. So, we get to the part after, you know, he has that talk with Bakugo, and Deku is walking home, and he gets an idea, right? He thinks like, what if I could get a lot of biomass, right? Because he knows his quirk runs off of this, so he's thinking to himself, what if I get a lot, right? And he's thinking of different ways on how he could do this pretty easily, and maybe do some good by doing this. So he decides to actually clean the streets, right? And what I mean by this is that he starts collecting garbage. He just goes around the city collecting garbage, and also he does a little bit like a side thing where he gets paid to like trim like bushes and things like that. So he's able to consume the leaves, and he's also able to consume any trash that's like biological. And yeah, it's kind of gross, but it's an easy way to get some, and it's also a good way to help the environment. And anything that's not biological, he actually takes that and recycles it. He gives it to a certain recycle. How would you call it? Like a um, you know how like cans, they say, oh, you'll get like 5 cents for turning in this can. He basically does that, but for like all types of recyclable items. So with this, he's actually able to get a little bit of money, right? And he was also able to get a lot of biomass. So we get to the next day. Class just started, and everyone's Azawa, whatever. He basically says, pick a class representative. I don't care who it is, just do it. So everyone's like cheering because they want to be the class representative. But then Ida comes in and he's like, all right, you need to have to become the class representative. You need to be responsible. You need to be in charge, right? You gotta be reliable, right? And he's like, let's just have a vote and see who, you know, is picked. So he does this, and Deku actually wins first place with 3 votes. Momo with 2, so they're both the representative and then the deputy, I think they call it. At least they'd say in the dub. And Deku, since he's more confident because the virus actually changed a little bit of his brain chemistry, combine that with all the good things that's been happening to him, he's just become more confident and he accepts the job. But he is a little humble. He's like, I know I have to work hard for this, you know? That's what he thinks. And since he's attracted to Momo and he kind of flirted with her before, he kind of gives her like a little uh, like he starts to flirt with her a little bit. He's like, well, it'll be he's like, I hope we get along together or something like that. And he winks, and she kind of blushes, but he's thinking in his head like, wow, that was pretty cringy. But he's like, I can't, there's nothing I can change. So we get to the part where it's during lunch, and the media comes into the school. He thinks, or everyone thinks, that it's a villain. Everyone goes to the hallway. It gets crowded. Ida sees that it's just the media, so he tells Deku this. And Deku's trying to get people's attention, but he can't because he's not loud enough with his voice. So he decides to use his muscle mass without one for all, obviously. And he just claps really loud and actually does a little bit of a shockwave to get everyone's attention. And everyone's looking at him, and he just says, calm down, everyone. It's just the media. You don't have to get worried. And then we do a quick, like time skip to when they're back in class, and they need to pick the other representatives, the other representatives for each cabinet. But they never really explain this in the anime, and I'm not really sure how it works in like Japanese schools. So I'll just leave it up to the comments to see which position each student goes to, but I don't think it really matters. And I don't know. So yeah, and then Aizawa basically says we're gonna go to the special place so you can learn how to rescue people. You know, the USJ, and that's what it is. So later on, or before that, he says, pick your clothes and stuff like that. Meanwhile, All Might, in the main story, he's caught up, saving people, but he eventually stops because of his time limit, and he's not able to join with them because he doesn't want to go there without looking like his buff form. But in this one, he gets more carried away with saving people because he can't turn down someone who needs help, and since he has no longer has time limit because he was healed, this is what actually keeps him from going to the USJ straight away. So they get on the bus. Deku, he it's a little bit different because he doesn't really need someone to make his suit because he could just make it out of his own biomass. Like how Alex Mercer is able to change into people and turn into have their clothes also, even though I don't know, it's just he's able to replicate their clothes using biomass. I guess it's not really explained, but yeah, sure. So he's able to make his costume whenever, and it should be stronger because if he uses like a normal like suit, it'll get like destroyed, and he won't be able to transform with it. Because if he could transform with it, then he just it wouldn't, it's just kind of like it just like this. It's just more simple to just use his biomass, if that makes sense. So they get there to the USDA, um, but before that they have this conversation on the bus talking about how Deku is one of the strongest students in the class, including Todoroki and Bakugo. They're just like having a conversation about that like they do in normal anime, and they're kind of like uh boosting Deku's ego at this point. But at the same time, Bakugo is just hearing this and he just gets angrier because all this life Deku has been weak, but now he just suddenly got stronger. And Todoroki's like he doesn't care because he's edgy and stuff like that. So they get to the USJ and 13's there, and she gives that speech about how your powers are are used for good, but they could also be used to hurt people. And Deku looks at his arms and he's like, yeah, I at this point I've only consumed like small things like hair, but what if I consume something larger? What if that thing was alive? He just thinks about this and he's like, wow, he didn't really notice, but his quirk is like kind of villainous because not only does it sound villainous by the name, but also how it appears, red with black, and how it looks like flesh. It kind of looks evil. And not only that, but what I was gonna say, um, the abilities that it has, ability to like consume things. It sounds pretty evil, but he knows that it's his quirk, so he wants to use it for good, no matter how villainous it sounds. After, you know, the speech is done, they start to head towards, the different areas. But then, portals open up, and that's when the villains come out. Students are shocked, like, I thought we were doing rescues. And Aizawa gets ready and tells everyone to stand back. But Deku, wanting to be a hero and having the confidence and knowing how powerful he is, steps up with Aizawa to try to defend. At first, Aizawa is against the idea because it's a student, but then he realizes that he's All Might's successor and he could use All for One, like, or one, yeah, All for One for like 100%. So he lets him, and basically they help take out most of the heroes. Since Deku's able to use his armor, granted not being as strong as it is in game, he's still able to use it, and it's still as strong as like some like strong stone, and he still has one for all, and he also has muscle mass, right? And he still has basic abilities that are enhanced due to the virus, and also regeneration. So he's pretty overpowered in this. So the other students get cornered by the teleporting villain. I forgot his name, and they're like, uh, we need to get backup. So 13 tells Ida, since he's the only character there that has any quirk related to speed, she says you need to run and get help. I know like 13's like, I heard that their gender is like not really specific. It's like never like really stated. It's supposed to be a mystery, but like in the dub it's like a female voice, so I'm just gonna call her a she. So she tells him to go and get the heroes or backup. And meanwhile, All Might, he's finally done helping people, and he gets to the school because he needs to get some of his like stuff to grade the students. So he goes to get his clipboard from the class, but then the principal stops him and shows him like all the stuff that he's been doing on the news, and he's like, "Why are you doing this when you have a time limit?" And he's like, "Oh, did I forget to mention my successor Izuku was actually able to heal me, and now I don't no longer have a time limit. And I know this might sound weird, but I think I'm actually even stronger now." And he's just shocked since he even know that was possible. But as again, he scolds him for being late, and he's like, "Just sit. You're already late, so it doesn't matter if you're gonna be late a little bit more." So he actually like sets up tea and tells him, listen to how my teaching theories are gonna be, just as he does in the anime. And before so we cut back to the villain attack. Deku with Aizawa's taking out most of the villains, and meanwhile the other students are just trying to like fight off this the teleporting villain, since he's very hard and very hard to beat, since he teleports and he's missed. 13 still gets injured by her own attack, and people I guess they still get teleported, but it's still the same as the anime, since none of them really had trouble. The only people that are gonna have trouble are I think her name is Suyu and Mineta. Those two are the only ones that are gonna have trouble, since they don't have Deku. And the only way that they're gonna have like a chance to win, or not really win, their only like option is to run, because Mineta can't do anything in the water, and there's just too many villains. So they have to run away basically. Okay, so Deku and Ozawa basically beat up most of the villains, and the only ones that are left kind of like try to hide away or go after the other students, because they don't have a chance against these two, since one can nullify powers and the other one's just like pure strength and kind of hacks. So at this point, Deku puts on his armor and charges at the Nomu, using muscle mass in his arms and using 100% of all for one for all. And he hits the Nomu, but it doesn't really do anything. It does damage, but it quickly gets healed due to the fact that the Nomu can actually regenerate. And Shigaraki actually goes up and he touches Deku with all 5 fingers, and it starts to what's it called? I don't know if his power is to disintegrate. I don't think it's to decay. He disintegrates. It's basically like imagine where he's touching is like a gray circle that keeps expanding and shrinking, because everything that's getting disintegrated is just getting replaced by new biomass, since Deku has so much biomass in him. And Aizawa just nullifies his quirk, and Deku goes for another punch, this time towards Shigaraki, but the Nomu actually blocks it, and throws Deku back a few feet, and he catches himself, and he's been thinking like, okay, I can't beat him through brute force. So Deku actually uses, at this point he has enough biomass to do it. He actually does a Devastator attack, and what these Devastator attacks in Prototype are basically when you have a certain amount of biomass in you, you do a special attack where it releases that biomass in a few different ways, and it does what it sounds. It's devastation everywhere. There's so much destruction, and specifically, he's going to do the beam one that Alex Mercer is able to do in Prototype 1, where it's basically like a Kamehameha, but with biomass. And he shoots this at the Nomu, and Shigaraki's like, "What are you doing? Don't you know he has shock absorption?" And Deku's like, "Yeah, but that's not my plan." And basically, instead of like, because in the game you shoot it out, and that's it, you lose all that biomass. But in this, he's not using it as like a brute force thing. He's basically shooting it out, and it's going around the Nomu, so he's not able to escape. And he actually starts to retract the biomass into himself, and this is how he consumes the Nomu, since it's covered with so much that it's not able to escape. And I would say, like, even though it has shock absorption, there's things like different like enzymes and things of that nature that could like dissolve his skin, since it's not, you know, brute force. It's actually like chemicals, you know, consuming it. So I would say that the Nomu would be a big upgrade, since it's so much biomass, and plus the different things that it's able to do. I would say this would fully upgrade Deku's armor to a little bit past the standard version that you get in the game. And I would say it would also upgrade his not biomass. It would upgrade his muscle mass significantly. I would think it's either on the, I think it would be at the standard at this point, the standard version of of muscle mass. I mean, because before this it was just the normal version, or not the normal. It was like a slightly worse version. Because at the point before he consumed the Nomu, it was like a version where it's like it has the defense, but it doesn't really have that much offense. So I would say it's at the standard version now. And at this point, Shigaraki just saw what happened, and he's freaked out, since he's never seen a quirk like this other than maybe Off One that could do this kind of thing. So he tells the teleporting villain to basically, you know, come out and like help him out. So that's what he does, and he opens a portal for him and him only, since he doesn't really care about the other villains there. So yeah, this was the point where All Might comes in and says, "I am here," you know, with Ida and everyone else of the other pro heroes, and they just see like, you know, all this destruction and all the villains there, and they clean up the rest of the villains that stayed behind, which is basically all of them. And you know, All Might's kind of disappointed because he has so much power that he got back, but he's not able to use it anywhere. But he's more glad that everyone's safe, and he's actually surprised that Deku was actually able to hold his own against actual villains. You know, and Deku's ego just blows up even more because of this. But he still tries to stay humble. He's like, you know, he has this mentality that he's not the best, since he's still able to evolve even more. So he's like, I need to fight. I need to train more so I could get even more power. He's kind of has this like Goku mentality, since his like quirk constantly evolves. And this isn't like a big like scene in the news, since the villains utterly failed. So everyone's parents are pretty cool with the idea of the dorms. But before all that, Deku basically tells All Might what happened, and he's he's still shocked at the point that Deku's able to do this kind of things, and he asks Deku, he's like, what's gonna happen to me since I have that virus, and Deku doesn't really know, and I'm gonna keep it that way since you guys tell me if you want All Might to have the other powers that Deku has, that the Blacklight virus gives. Should he have that, or should he just stay All Might, but only a little bit better than his prime and no time limit? So you guys can comment that, and I'll try to put it into the story. If I can't, then I'll just keep him how he is right now. But yeah, you know, and since he has this like high from the adrenaline and doing so well, he basically uh, tells he asks Momo on kind of a date, since he's so confident at this point, since he's on top of the world, since he's been doing so well, and he just got a new ability, and he just was able to impress All Might. So he does this in front of the class, not really caring, because like I said, he's on this like winning high, and all the girls blush, saying that he's like super like not aggressive, but straightforward, I would say. And Momo just blushes and she agrees. And I'm gonna kind of put that in like the next part, their date. But I think I'll end it here. So he, like I said, he just got some new abilities, and the what's it called? The villains actually lost pretty badly in this version. All Might wasn't able to do anything, and I don't know. Will he be able to do stuff in the future? Maybe. This is gonna be the end of this part. So, in the next part, we're gonna do the sports festival and the training and stuff like that. In this part, I try to do a little bit more character development in this one, since I've been just doing the basic events and not really developing Deku's character, since it's a big change to how he is in the anime, considering what quirk he has and how villainous it is. So I'll try to improve in that if you guys want, and I'll add more character development if you guys want that also. So this is gonna be the end of the part. So yeah.